Sarah Bennett thought surviving war was her hardest fight, or so she believed until one winter night when a text from her father shattered that notion. "Don't come home this Christmas, Sarah. It's better if you stay away." No warmth, no reason, just words that cut deeper than any bullet. She'd spent years in the army, dodging danger, burying friends, clinging to the hope of home. Why would those she loved most lock her out? Stay with us. Have you ever given everything for family, only to find they've turned the key against you? Sarah grew up in Willow Creek, Oregon, a small town where everyone knows your name, but not always your heart. For 10 years, she served as a soldier, sending every spare dollar to her parents, James and Ellen, and her brother Ethan. She called on birthdays, sent flowers for anniversaries, hoping her sacrifices would earn her a place at their table. But each call grew colder, each letter unanswered. She thought they disapproved of her enlistment, that she'd failed as the daughter they wanted. That text from James wasn't just a message, it was a wall, built to keep her out. In her tiny apartment, Christmas lights blinking, Sarah stared at the screen, grappling with the silence. Her heart ached, not with anger, but with questions. Why did home feel so far, despite her fight to return? She wasn't ready to give up. She needed to see their faces, to understand why they'd chosen to leave her in the cold. At 18, Sarah left Willow Creek, a duffel bag over her shoulder, dreams bigger than the small town. She joined the army to find herself and make her parents proud. At the door, James's voice was firm. "This isn't a woman's path, Sarah. Stay home." Ellen gripped her hand, eyes wet, silent. Ethan shrugged, already turning away. Sarah thought hard work would change their minds. From every posting, she sent money, called on holidays, mailed gifts, a scarf for Ellen, tools for James. But their replies dwindled, voices flat, as if she were fading from their lives. She sent Ellen a scarf from her first deployment, hoping she'd wear it. It stayed boxed. Each Christmas, she pictured walking through that door, welcomed, belonging. But every unanswered call, every check cashed without thanks, chipped at her hope. In dusty barracks, she wrote letters, believing love meant holding on, even when it stung. She told herself her uniform set her apart, that she wasn't the daughter they wanted. That winter night, James's text hit hard, and Sarah wondered if she'd ever been enough. Had she left too soon, or had they let her go? She kept trying, not for approval, but for the family she still saw in her dreams. James's text sank into Sarah, cold and unyielding, like frost on a battlefield. "Don't come home this Christmas." Those words weren't a message. They were a wall, shutting her out without a why. In her apartment, Christmas lights casting shadows, she pictured them at the table, laughing without her. She'd spent years thinking James and Ellen turned away because she chose the army, because she wasn't their Willow Creek girl anymore. But this felt different, final. Her chest tightened, not with rage, but with a need to know. Why, after all she'd given, money sent, calls made, every piece of her tied to that house, did they lock the door? She recalled James teaching her to skate on Willow Creek's frozen pond, promising to catch her. Now, his words felt like a fall she couldn't brace for. She opened her laptop, hands trembling, and booked a flight to Oregon. No begging, no fighting, just a chance to see their eyes, hear their truth. She set down their family photo, Ellen's smile, James's steady gaze, Ethan's grin, fingers lingering. Had she lost them, or had something stolen them? She packed, 10 years of soldier's grit steadying her. She was going home, not to plead, but to stand in that house and ask why it wasn't hers anymore. In the quiet, Sarah traced the scars on her knuckles, earned dragging a wounded friend through sand and smoke. Each mark told a story of survival, but none prepared her for this betrayal. She remembered Ellen's lullabies, soft in the dark, promising safety. Were those promises empty now? The thought stung, but Sarah pushed it aside. She pulled on her old army jacket, its weight familiar, grounding. Outside, city lights blurred through her window, a world moving on while hers stood still. She wasn't running to Willow Creek for answers. She was marching toward truth, ready to face whatever broke her family. Her resolve hardened, a quiet fire kindled by years of carrying others' burden. Sarah stepped into the Willow Creek home, expecting pine and baking bread, but the air was stale, heavy with dust. James and Ellen moved like shadows, Ellen wiping clean counters, James hauling boxes like a hired hand. Ethan lounged on the sofa, his wife flipping through a magazine, both untouched by the work. Sarah's stomach turned. This wasn't the home she'd sent money to save. "James, Ellen," she said, voice steady. "What's going on?" Ellen's hands froze, eyes darting to James. He sighed, shoulders sagging. "We didn't want you to worry, Sarah," he whispered. Ellen's voice broke. "Ethan said you were too busy to care." The truth spilled, bitter as spilled coffee. Ethan had taken over. Sarah's money, their lives, their dignity. He'd convinced them to stay quiet, claiming she didn't need to know. They lived like servants in their own home, while he spent her checks. Ethan met her gaze, jaw tight. "You're never here, Sarah. This isn't your place." She didn't flinch. "This is their home," she said, "not your kingdom." Her heart ached for James and Ellen, trapped by shame and silence. She wasn't there to fight. She was there to set them free. In a Willow Creek lawyer's office, the air thick with old files and stale coffee, Sarah sat, hands gripping the chair, knuckles pale. The lawyer slid a faded mortgage contract across the desk, her signature bold from 5 years ago, when James called, voice cracking, begging her to co-sign to save the home. At 23, fresh from deployment, dust on her boots, Sarah signed without thought, believing it tied her to them, proof she was their daughter despite the miles. The lawyer's voice was calm, but weighty. "Sarah, you own 51% of the property. You have controlling interest." The words hit like a shockwave, linking her to a home she'd been barred from. Her mind flashed to Ellen, wiping counters for Ethan, hands raw, James hauling boxes, pride buried under Ethan's greed. They never told her of this power, never hinted she held their freedom. Perhaps shame silenced them, or fear of Ethan's hold. Sarah wasn't angry, not at them. They were caught in his lies, her money fueling their captivity. This house, where she'd sent every dollar to save, was their prison. She leaned forward, tracing her signature, feeling a decade of army life, nights under fire, friends lost, lessons carved in grit. This wasn't about crushing Ethan. It was about restoring James and Ellen's dignity. Outside, snow fell soft on Willow Creek, blanketing the town in hush. "What's your next step?" the lawyer asked, pen poised. Sarah pictured Ellen's weary smile, James's slumped shoulders, and resolve settled, steady as a soldier's stance. "Prepare the papers," she said, voice firm. "I need to protect them." Ethan wouldn't yield easily. She knew his pride, his lazy grip on what wasn't his. But she wasn't the girl who left at 18, craving love. She'd carried wounded through chaos, stood firm against worse than Ethan's anger. This was her chance to right a wrong, to give her parents the home they'd earned. She glanced at the lawyer, his nod confirming the path. "It'll take time," he said, "but you're within your rights." Sarah nodded, cold air sharp in her lungs as she stepped outside, snow dusting her coat. She saw the house in her mind, its sagging porch, quiet rooms, and knew this wasn't about owning it. It was about freeing it, for them. She wasn't sure how Ethan would react, but she was ready, not for revenge, but for the family she still believed in, flawed and fractured, but hers. In a Willow Creek cafe, where locals traded nods but kept secrets, Sarah sat, laptop glowing in the dim light. She typed a letter to Ethan, each word a careful step through a minefield, meant to reclaim what he'd taken without breaking their fragile family. As co-owner, she demanded he stop controlling James and Ellen, stop spending her money. This was about their home, their peace, not settling scores. She paused, seeing Ethan as a boy, racing her through summer fields, laugh free and wild. Now, he was a stranger, his smirk dismissing. "You're never here, Sarah." But she was here, and his lies wouldn't hold. She wrote, "This house is James and Ellen's. You've had your share." Her phone buzzed. Ethan, voice raw with fury. "What's this garbage, Sarah?" "You think you can take my house?" Sarah's tone stayed even, honed by years under pressure. "It's theirs, Ethan. Stop hurting them, or you'll lose more than a roof." He laughed, bitter, but fear undercut it. "You're nothing here," he spat, hanging up. Sarah stared at the snow, sipping cold coffee, Ellen's raw hands and James's shame vivid. They'd let Ethan rule, believing they'd failed him, their love blinding them to his greed. She didn't judge. Love can trap as much as it lifts. This letter was her line in the sand, a boundary she couldn't undo. In the desert, she'd learned to stand firm, to shield what mattered, and this was her stand, for parents who deserved freedom. She sent the email, its ping sharp in the quiet cafe, and leaned back, resolve steady. Ethan would push back. He'd always coasted on others' work. Sarah thought of Ellen's voice at church suppers, James's hands fixing their old swing, and knew she wasn't fighting for herself. She fought for them, for the home they'd built before Ethan tore it down. She closed her laptop, the cafe's warmth, a faint comfort. She wasn't the girl who left Willow Creek, chasing approval. She was a woman who'd held lives in her hands, built strength from loss. Ethan's anger didn't scare her. She was ready to face him, to hold this ground, to show what family could mean if he stepped up. The cafe's clock ticked, each second heavy with purpose. Sarah glanced at her dog tags, tucked beneath her sweater, their cool metal a reminder of battles won. She recalled a night in the barracks, sharing stories with soldiers who'd lost homes too, not to war, but to broken bonds. Their voices echoed in her now, urging her to fight not with fists but with truth. She wasn't just saving a house. She was reclaiming a legacy. Ellen's kindness, James's quiet strength. This letter wasn't her endgame. It was her opening move, a call for Ethan to face himself. Sarah's gaze drifted to the snow, each flake a fleeting chance to rebuild what was lost. Snow crunched under Sarah's boots outside the Willow Creek home, the air sharp with winter's bite. The lawyer beside her held papers. A property manager waited, clipboard steady. Ethan flung the door open, face red, eyes blazing. "You've got no right, Sarah," he shouted, voice echoing down the street. "This is my house." Sarah looked past him to James and Ellen, shadowed in the hallway. Ellen's hands twisted, face pale, James's shoulders slumped, eyes averted. Sarah's heart ached, but her voice stayed steady, army honed. "Ethan, this house belongs to James and Ellen. You've made them strangers here, working for you while you take what's theirs. That ends today." The lawyer offered papers spelling Sarah's claim, 51%, inked years ago. Ethan snatched them, tearing the edge, his wife hovering, silent but glaring. "You're breaking our family," he spat. Sarah shook her head. "You broke it when you made them your servants." Ellen stepped forward, voice trembling. "Sarah, he's your brother. Please, find a way." Her words stung, but Sarah met her eyes. "I'll forgive him, Ellen. When he stands on his own, like you taught me. James took her hand, voice low. We let this happen. We didn't stop him. Their shame weighed heavy, but it wasn't theirs alone. Sarah faced Ethan. Sign the lease or leave. This isn't about punishing you. It's about giving them their home back. Ethan laughed, bitter, hands shaking. Sarah saw the boy she'd known, chasing her through fields, sharing secrets, buried under laziness and greed. She didn't hate him, she pitied him. The lawyer outlined terms. Ethan could stay if he paid rent, treated James and Ellen as equals. Ethan scoffed, but his wife tugged his arm, whispering. The street was silent, snow drifting soft. Sarah touched her dog tags, cold against her skin, grounding her. She'd faced worse. Bullets, loss, nights unsure of dawn. But fighting for her parents' dignity felt heavier. Ethan glared, then stormed inside, slamming the door. Ellen reached for Sarah, her hand warm. We're sorry, she whispered. Sarah squeezed her hand. I'm here now, she said. She wasn't taking the house to win. She was taking it to heal what Ethan had broken, to give her parents peace, and perhaps, one day, show her brother what family could be. Sarah sat with James and Ellen in the living room, the Willow Creek house quiet, as if breathing again. The furniture was worn, neglected, but the air felt lighter, the walls sensing freedom. Ellen's hands rested in her lap, no longer scrubbing for Ethan. James's eyes, once clouded with shame, met Sarah's with relief. Sarah spoke softly, steadily. This house is yours again, she said. Not Ethan's, not mine, but yours, where you belong. Ellen's fingers tightened around James's, her voice a whisper. Sarah, can you forgive him? He's still your brother. Her words held a mother's hope, clinging even through pain. Sarah looked at her, her resolve clear. I'll forgive Ethan when he lives for someone besides himself, she said. This isn't punishment, Ellen. It's a chance for him to change, James nodded, voice rough. We failed you both, letting him take so much. Sarah shook her head. You loved us. That's enough to start again. Ethan had left that morning, his wife trailing, no apologies, just a suitcase and a scowl. Sarah felt no triumph, only quiet resolve. She'd come to Willow Creek seeking why they'd pushed her away, only to find them trapped by Ethan's greed, their own guilt. They hadn't told her, perhaps ashamed of their fall. She didn't blame them. Love can blind, and they'd loved both children too much to see the truth. Sarah leaned forward, hands clasped. I want this house to be more than ours, she said. I'm turning it into a place for women like me, veterans needing a home, a fresh start. Ellen's eyes widened, a small smile breaking through. Do it, Sarah, she said. James squeezed her hand, adding, make it mean something. Warmth filled Sarah, a feeling absent for years as they planned something bigger. The house would be Bennett House, a haven for women bearing war's weight, needing to heal. She wasn't erasing the past or proving a point to Ethan. She did it because the army taught her home isn't walls, it's purpose. Ellen reached for her hand, her touch steady. We're proud of you, she said. Those words, simple and true, settled like a long-lost song. Sarah didn't need Ethan's regret or the house's title. She needed this, her parents, their home restored, a chance to build anew from what was lost. Spring came to Willow Creek, snow melting into soft earth, and Bennett House opened under a pale sky. Sarah stood on the porch, watching women, veterans like her, cross the gate, bags heavy with untold stories. Anna, a former medic, came first, eyes bright after years on city benches. She hugged Sarah, whispering, "Thank you for this chance to start over." Jane followed, a pilot whose steady hands once flew missions but shook after losing work. She found a job here, her first paycheck in years, her grin lighting the kitchen. Sarah smiled. but her chest bore her journey's weight. She'd returned to a family she thought had rejected her, believing James and Ellen turned away because of her uniform. Finding them trapped by Ethan's control, she saw their love hadn't faded, just buried under shame. They never sought help, perhaps too proud, too broken. Now their house was theirs again, and they'd built something greater. Bennett House wasn't just walls, it was a promise for women who'd fought, bled, returned to empty lives. Each Christmas, Sarah lit a candle on the porch. Not for Ethan, not for old wounds, but for these women and herself. The girl once outside this house, yearning to belong. James and Ellen lived there now, their laughter warming once cold rooms. They were proud of this place, its meaning. At Sunday dinners, Ellen served apple pie, James shared Willow Creek tales, and Sarah saw the parents she'd fought for. She didn't know Ethan's path, but hoped he'd learn what family costs. Sarah didn't build Bennett House to win or forget. She built it to heal, to turn pain into purpose. Anna's quiet strength, Jane's new job, women sharing coffee, these were her home. She learned home isn't given. It's crafted, where you stand, where you lift others. These women, their scars like hers, showed she wasn't alone. She looked at them, knowing they were building something lasting, a place where all belonged. On quiet evenings, Sarah walked the house's halls, hearing laughter from rooms once silent. She paused at a photo of her younger self, saluting in uniform, eyes full of hope. That girl hadn't known the battles ahead, not just in war, but in love. Bennett House was her answer to those battles, a testament to resilience. She thought of Ellen's hands, now kneading dough instead of scrubbing floors, and James's stories, now shared with veterans who listened, rapt. This wasn't just a shelter, it was a community, woven from shared pain and purpose. By Bennett House's fireplace, Sarah felt warmth envelop her, a comfort absent for years. Her journey wasn't easy, facing a fractured family, finding her parents trapped by Ethan's selfishness, learning to stand firm without losing herself. She came to Willow Creek seeking answers, believing she'd failed as a daughter, but found a truth harder than war. Love doesn't always shield, but it can teach you to shield yourself. Setting boundaries with Ethan wasn't about exclusion. It was a chance for him to grow, to bear his own weight. Sarah learned strength isn't just surviving. It's choosing who enters your heart, knowing when to say enough. Bennett House taught another lesson. Healing comes from giving others what you once lacked. These women, veterans like her, carried battles in their eyes. But here, they found rest, rebuilding. James and Ellen, now free in their home, showed love, even flawed, can mend with time. Sarah didn't know if Ethan would change, but she hoped he'd find his way. For now, she was there, building a home for others, finding peace in their laughter. To you, listening, what boundaries have you set to guard your heart? What home have you built from struggle? Share below. We all bear scars, but also strength, to heal, to help, to craft a place we belong. Your voice matters. What's the home you fought for?